beneath the White Horse at Westbury. There were no arrests last night as the hippies moved from Savernake Forest, but the Roundway service garage in Devizes was hit. Items valued at £600 were stolen when some members of the convoy moved south. The garage also lost fuel valued at another £100 when the hippies moved off without paying.
The peace, and I've laid contingency plans, but what I hope is that we don't get these confrontations. I don't want the confrontation, my officers don't want the confrontations, and if common sense prevails, we won't get them.
And the police officer who masterminded the operation to stop hippies reaching Stonehenge at the beginning of the month has been appointed Deputy Chief Constable. Lionel Grundy controlled 500 officers in the battle with travellers in a broad bean field near Chalderton. He's been Assistant Chief Constable since April last year.
For tomorrow's summer solstice, he says he's prepared to ask other police forces for help if necessary.
I'm not a person who would wish that sort of confrontation. What I hope is that common sense prevails, that people know that the stones are closed, and frankly there is going to be no festival this year because of the determination of the Heritage Commission and the Trust. I've got to deal with the situation that I'm confronted with, that people know those injunctions are there, and if as they do, and certainly as we do, that if anyone is approaching Stonehenge, we advise them of the law, we advise them that there's no festival taking place this year. And if against all that advice they're still determined to try and gain access to the land of the National Trust or the Heritage Commission or Wiltshire County Council, then I'm duty-bound to act.
Gypsies camped illegally on wasteland at the Three Lamps Junction at Totterdown in Bristol are being moved on to...
I feel a bit of a twitch opening this fucking tape machine. Hello, Rob. Got no fucking water here. Can't have a wash. Dope's really expensive here. We're not going back. I went back to the fucking flat a few days ago and it's been trashed. Everything's been fucking nicked, all the sounds and everything. Fucking right track that. So we got a bus here now and we're staying on it. Try and keep in touch with you. You're gonna get another of these what's the names together, Jane? These press cutting things.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fucking...
Yeah, say a few words about taking me to site. Were you in the middle of it, or what?
Yeah, no, it was more or less up front. It was really easy here because they never know where we're going. And they think we know what we're doing, but we don't. And they give us a bit more credit, really, than we deserve. And I think that's why we get away with it, because they think we know what we're doing. And maybe a couple of us think we know what we're doing. And it's true, though, isn't it?
How long were you jailed for?
Pardon?
How long were you jailed for? 2 days?
It was between... The first was out after a day, and the second, and the last of them after about a week. But that was all totally illegal, all those arrests. We're trying to fucking sort things out and take them to court for illegally arresting us. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know.
Did you get hit much?
Yeah, I did. I didn't get locked up. No. I got chased over the ditch with a bus and lost my petrol tank. So I couldn't move, and me and Pat got left in charge of all the dogs on site, about 100 fucking dogs, and tied all around the bus. And in the morning, Sunday morning, we went to go off the site. We had to get the bus towed by this Tristan's bus next door. And they come in here and fucking... I said I was somebody else for various reasons. And they come on here and Went through the whole fucking bus. They took like 2 machetes, an axe, a bread knife. It's jug. I hadn't got any change. That bloke's just going to get some change. 2 machetes, a bread knife, a bread knife, and a little sheath knife I was looking after for another kid.
Where you like 2 eats? I've sold it, have you?
Alright, for 24. Well, there's that bloke, 16.
Is this still, are you still the same one he was here earlier?
So's the bloke that got these,
Is this the second 16th you just wanted?
No, that's the first 16.
Yeah, you was here and couldn't get the money for 6.
No, that's not true. That's a bloke that was there and he only had a £10 note. I had to ask him to go and get the change. Hang on, you share this one with you.
That's right, Frank.
Right, that's his 16th.
Oh, it's 2 8, so I thought so.
No. And this bloke, oh fucking hell, yeah. And the bread knife, he went through all the cutlery and everything, took the bread knife as well. And as you see on television the next night, yeah, it will. It will. On the Sunday night, they showed on fucking television this backdrop thing, showing all these weapons.
Just to leave that wax on.
Yeah, because that's
To level it.
yeah. Somebody else bothered with that, so I've just left it there. Yeah, they took these things from in the bus, like, and they hadn't been fucking. They were just wood cutting tools and eating things, you know. And fucking, I was watching the telly the next night, and she actually saw them just, you know, against one of them white backcloth things. The actual things, because she recognised them as our tools, like, and right, that's it. Right. And it said underneath them, the weapons. Hang on, leave it there, Joe.
All right.
Please.
All right.
Just put it there.
Just wants pressing, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, oh. All right. Before you start nicking bits off it, right?
I'm not going
It's
to
not sold yet.
It's for fucking mates of
Who's
mine.
got his money?
I'm going to go and get it. It's just over there. 2 blokes from Worcester just got it.
Go and get the money then. Go and get the money. Because I'm still waiting for this other bloke. Fucking somebody deposit that. You're fucking
Oh,
cocky.
come on, I ain't going to go anywhere.
Oh, Joe, look, I've just got out of fucking bed to do this. Right? I don't want your fucking car keys.
Well, you know I'll come back.
Oh, fucking hell, man. I
I'll
know.
be back
I'm.
in 10 minutes.
You're a fucking hassling me, right? Fucking thick and fast.
Back to my house.
Yes, your fucking arm's supposed to be in bed. I just got up to talk to Trevor for a minute. I got up to wait that He hasn't come back for that 16th yet.
Well, did he have some change?
He had a £10 note that I was able to change for 2 fivers. I still couldn't do the thing for 6
Why
quid.
didn't you do in 5s with and buy to bill?
Because I fucking can only do what I can weigh, you know what I mean? Right, so I've got a quarter minus 16th left.
And 2 8s. Oh yeah, you got.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, yeah.
3 16ths you got there. An 8th and a 16th.
Right. There's 2 8s there.
Well, let me take 1 then.
Right,
bring
take
you
1. And if you don't sell it,
How
put
much
back
is
the
that?
bit on it
How
that you
much do you
fucking
want
nicked. 6 quid.
What,
An eighth, 12 quid.
You want 12?
Yeah.
Not 11.
No, I can't. Ask here yesterday, everyone's paying this. I paid fucking 85 quid on 3 ounces.
Yeah.
Simply because it's the same firm that's doing all the fucking dope, and that's all you can get it at, whether you buy fucking. And if you see that twad, that 16th is here, I'll probably fucking end up losing it. Hey, don't walk off with me flag. It's alright. I know. That was your intention. Yeah, all these fucking weapons, and it said on the weapons confiscated by police, and it actually said that they were used against them, that they were used with these fucking guys. And they were really desperate to get hold of these weapons just to justify what they'd fucking done to all these vehicles, you know. There's some sherry mixed with lemonade in it. Oh.
Westbury, if you turn right here, work your way along to the A360 heading towards Dividers. It's on there. What you've got to do is turn right, keep going until you pick up, until you come to a T-junction. If you don't turn off anywhere, the village you'll come to is West Lamington. Now come to some crossroads. What you want to do is follow signs A360 for Divisors then. From Divisors, you want to head for Swindon. If you head for Swindon, you'll go straight past A3. What are you going to aim before? Just to visit today? I'm setting up a camp now then. Alright.
Not football fans.
Oh, that's alright, You, just in case you decide to come back here, the land on which you're camping on belongs to the Ministry of Defence. Camping is prohibited on there. The Wilkes County Council and the Secretary of State have now said the land which takes you up there, which the road you just travelled down, is restricted access. If you did decide to come back, there's no way that you'd be able to. The position's going to change in the next couple of days with the occupation of the locals. So you're probably doing the wisest thing and getting out now. And the others realise the same. Anyway, have a safe journey then. As I say, you want to turn right, head on towards West Lamington. When you get to West Lamington, you've basically got to turn left on the A360 towards Divisors. When you get to Divisors, A361 to Swindon. And you'll go West Lamington. Yeah. Alright.
Expecting illegal invasion by hundreds of hippies at tomorrow's summer solstice. Barbed wire barricades have been set up and officers with guard dogs have circled the area.
A constant watch is being kept on the camp from the air. A move by the hippies towards Stonehenge is now thought to be imminent. Ministry of Defence police have mounted guard around the military firing range which skirts the side of the camp. They've warned the hippies of the dangers of crossing the range, but they're still taking every precaution in case an attempt is made. Observation points equipped with special night sights have been set up to spot any movement by the hippies under cover of darkness. The army has dug trenches and thrown up earth barricades across the country tracks leading towards the Stonehenge area. Army patrols around Salisbury Plain are much more in evidence than normal, skirting the fringes of the range. The Chief Constable has said he's determined to prevent any mass trespass in the area by the hippies. But they've been planning exactly how they'll avoid the barriers the police and the army have put in their way.
Extra.
It's thought any mass movement towards the site will be on foot across the fields tonight.
David Chater, ITN, Stonehenge.
The site's owners don't want it to be damaged, but a group of hippies who've camped nearby above the White Horse at Westbury say some of them still intend to go. More than 1,000 have gathered there. Tonight they're holding a pop concert at the camp, but many plan to move on in the morning.
Stonehenge is ringed by barbed wire and the police movement.
Closed to the public, and police are preparing to turn back an illegal invasion by hundreds of hippies who plan to celebrate tomorrow's summer solstice there. Officers with guard dogs are patrolling the area, and a barbed wire barricade now circles the prehistoric monument.
The number of hippies joining the camp above the White Horse has grown considerably over the last few hours.
A constant watch is being kept from the Warwick
police and army helicopters. Tonight, rain and a fresh wind somewhat dampened the summer solstice spirits. They're still determined to head for Stonehenge, but the weather forecast predicts there's little chance of the clouds parting to allow them a view of the midsummer sun rising wherever they are.
Earlier, Ministry of Defence police threw a cordon around the firing range which skirts the side of the front. They've warned the hippies of the dangers of crossing the range But in case that warning isn't heeded, they've set up observation points with special night sights to spot any move made by the hippies under cover of darkness. The army has dug trenches and thrown up earth barricades leading towards the Stonehenge area. Army patrols around Salisbury. The hippies have been talking all day about how they can get round the barriers put in their way by the army and the police.
Cricket. Stonehenge on the dawn of the summer solstice. On a show of force nearby, and hundreds of police were on standby to stop any large-scale movement on Stonehenge. They weren't needed, and one senior officer said today he was delighted with the way things had gone. David Chater reports.
The unseasonable weather kept most of the hippies around the campfires or under canvas last night, but the police helicopters are up and actively probing the area with a searchlight to spot any breakaway groups heading for Stonehenge.
An unscheduled display of
pyrotechnics was performed by the military when an armoured column swept within a few hundred yards of the camp and let off a volley of flares. An all-night watch was kept up by the Ministry of Defence Police. They were equipped with special night scopes to seek out any groups brave enough to attempt to walk to Stonehenge across country. None were spotted. The police checkpoints along the main roads also had very little overnight traffic to cope with. It seems most of the hippies spent the shortest night of the year sheltering from the weather. But a few determined individuals, calling themselves pagans for peace, did manage to celebrate the summer solstice, albeit on the other side of the barbed wire. They'd walked all through the night on foot. Some of them made the journey from London. Dog patrols were operating behind the wire to reinforce the keep out message. The midsummer sunrise, when it did come shortly before 5 o'clock, was completely obscured by low cloud and drizzle. But the police had successfully prevented a mass trespass on the ancient site. The hippies at Westbury, though, still say they'll make for Stonehenge. It's not the time that matters, it's the magic that counts, they say. David Chater, News at 1 in Wiltshire.
Of hippies tried to cut through the barbed wire to celebrate the summer solstice, but there was no invasion, possibly because of the wet weather. 2 weeks ago, more than 500 people were arrested as hippies converged on Stonehenge for an illegal pop concert. This morning, about 80 people celebrated the solstice from a road nearby, while another 1,500 stayed instead at their camp near the White Horse Monument at Westbury. Clive Ferguson reports.
Dawn on the longest day at Stonehenge saw no let-up in the police and private security operation, which has kept the historic stone sealed off to all visitors. Rumours that the main body of the peace camp would still try to get past the police proved unfounded, but a small separate group was allowed to hold its own ceremony, though some distance from the stones. Throughout it all, the sun refused to break through the overcast sky, which had given the travellers a soaking overnight at their camp on Westbury Hill. Midsummer it may be, but the muddy camp had become positively inhospitable. But for all that, and their disappointment at not being allowed to hold the festival where they'd planned, the travellers remained determined that while they'd failed this year, they would be back.
This is not finished yet, and I'm absolutely certain that next year that the festival will be at Stonehenge, and I don't see anything that's happened, apart from some people who've had, violence done unto them and their homes lost and things like that.
While some of the travellers say they still intend to try to go to Stonehenge this weekend, others have decided it's time to move on.
Stonehenge, despite a number of hippies having begun to leave the area. The bad weather is being blamed for their decision to quit. With the details, Phil Jones.
Steady rain has just about washed out any remaining prospect of a hippie invasion of Stonehenge. Their camp on White Horse Hill, 25 miles away, has been turned into a quagmire, and the 1,500 inhabitants have spent the day huddled in their tents. Some are beginning to leave. Others say they won't go to Stonehenge and risk another confrontation with the massed ranks of police who've sealed off the stones with roadblocks and are turning back any hippie trying to get there. The monument is still ringed with barbed wire and patrolled by guard dogs. Even so, some of the encampments say that they'll wait and visit Stonehenge in their own good time.
And today until Monday. English Heritage, the government body who owned the White Horse Monument, and the Ministry of Defence, who owned surrounding land, wanted permission to make the hippies move on. Meanwhile, at Pilton in Somerset, the site is already almost full for this weekend's pop festival. Organisers have appealed for people without tickets to stay away.
The small group of you, the 15, the up to 500, however many end up going? Smiling and crying, I should imagine. Much the same as I do every year.
We will each, in our own way, hold what we consider to be an appropriate ceremony for the occasion. We introduce children to the family at large, couples who wish to sanctify their being together do that. Basically, we just let our religious susceptibilities take reign for a while.
You make it all sound very nice and peaceful and a family occasion, but there could be a lot of trouble before you get there.
We won't be causing it. We've never caused it. We don't look for violence. All the violence that's happened over the past few weeks, if people look closely at the television screens, I saw some pictures of it. I wasn't there. I was horrified. And it was the violence from the hippies, in inverted commas, was all of the defensive variety, wasn't it? I mean, that's made itself patently obvious. I don't think we're violent, but we've got women and children with us, and I think we'll defend our women and our children. And I think if any man listening in Britain has got a wife and child, wouldn't he defend them?
When are you hoping to get to the Stones in that case?
Whenever we get it together, sometime this afternoon. It doesn't matter when. Just whenever a group of people decide they're going to go, then we'll go off, I think, won't we?
Yes, I mean, all you're talking about anyway is when we're going to get our physical bodies to the Stones. I can go inside of those Stones instantly any minute I choose, and do so often. And there's no power around that I can see that can catch me and put me back out again. You're only talking about when we take so many pounds of old meat down there. That's all you're talking about.
So the festival has already begun up here on Westbury Whitehorse.
The festival has been going in Wiltshire since June the 1st. It will go through to July. That we can promise them. And another thing is that if we are stopped and turned back today, because certainly we will not issue any violence, you know. But what they are going to have to contend with then, although we may have a few festivals to do between now and then, what they will have to contend with then is peace camps all over Wiltshire this winter demanding the use of Stonehenge.
around Stonehenge, despite a number of hippies having begun to leave the area. The bad weather is being blamed for their decision to quit. With the details, Phil Jones.
Steady rain has just about washed out any remaining prospect of a hippie invasion of Stonehenge. Their camp on White Horse Hill, 25 miles away, has been turned into a quagmire, and the 1,500 inhabitants have spent the day huddled in their tents. Some are beginning to leave. Others say they won't go to Stonehenge and risk another confrontation with the massed ranks of police who've sealed off the stones with roadblocks and are turning back any hippie trying to get there. The monument is still ringed with barbed wire and patrolled by guard dogs. Even so, some of the encampments say that they'll wait and visit Stonehenge in their own good time.
And today until Monday. English Heritage, the government body who owned the White Horse Monument, and the Ministry of Defence, who owned surrounding land, wanted permission to make the hippies move on. Meanwhile, at Pilton in Somerset, the site is already almost full for this weekend's pop festival. Organisers have appealed for people without tickets to stay away.
The small group of you, the 15, the up to 500, however many end up going?
Smiling and crying, I should imagine. Much the same as I do every year.
We will each, in our own way, hold what we consider to be an appropriate ceremony for the occasion. We introduce children to the family at large, couples who wish to sanctify their being together do that. Basically, we just let our religious susceptibilities take reign for a while.
You make it all sound very nice and peaceful and a family occasion, but there could be a lot of trouble before you get there.
We won't be causing it. We've never caused it. We don't look for violence. All the violence that's happened over the past few weeks, if people look closely at the television screens, I saw some pictures of it. I wasn't there. I was horrified. And it was the violence from the hippies, in inverted commas, was all of the defensive variety, wasn't it? I mean, that's made itself patently obvious. I don't think we're violent, but we've got women and children with us, and I think we'll defend our women and our children. And I think if any man listening in Britain has got a wife and child, wouldn't he defend them?
When are you hoping to get to the stones in that case?
Whenever we get it together, sometime this afternoon. It doesn't matter when. Whenever a group of people decide they're going to go, then we'll go off, I think, won't we?
Yes, I mean, all you're talking about anyway is when we're going to get our physical bodies to the stones. I can go inside of those stones instantly any minute I choose, and do so often. And there's no power around that I can see that can catch me and put me back out again. You're only talking about when we take so many pounds of old meat down there. That's all you're talking about.
So the festival has already begun up here on Westbury White Horse.
The festival has been going in Wiltshire since June the 1st. It will go through to July. That we can promise them. And another thing is that if we are stopped and turned back today, because certainly we will not issue any violence, But what they are going to have to contend with then, although we may have a few festivals to do between now and then, what they will have to contend with then is peace camps all over Wiltshire this winter demanding the use of Stonehenge.
There's an uneasy calm in the area tonight.
Stonehenge police battle with hundreds of hippies. Stonehenge in Wiltshire, more than 300 hippies have been arrested after a violent confrontation with police from 6 counties. The hippies, part of a 140-vehicle peace convoy, were stopped as they tried to get to an illegal pop festival at the ancient monument.
Is heading the operation. Reinforcements have been called in from 5 other forces. A helicopter is now flying above the scene, 10 miles from Stonehenge. Mr. Grundy is telling the 400 hippies camped in a field near police barricades, hand yourselves over or we'll move in. So far, they haven't budged. Les Skipper, IRN, the Stonehenge Siege Festival at the monument. The hippies in return tried to run police over, then set fire to their vehicles. A 4-day-old baby was rescued from the battle by social workers. There have been injuries on both sides. Assistant Chief Constable Lionel Grundy masterminded the operation.
I think with the information that was
At hand, I have very little alternative.
Most of the hippies face charges concerning assault, criminal damage, offensive weapons and drugs. Les Skipper, IRN, the Battle of Stonehenge.
In Wiltshire, police have already fought one pitched battle with Hell's Angels who tried to break through their barricades. They're trying to reach Stonehenge to hold an illegal pop festival. From there, Les Skipper.
500 police wielding truncheons and carrying riot shields advanced on the hippies to stop them from holding an illegal pop festival at the monument. The hippies in return tried to run police over, then set fire to their vehicles. A 4-day-old baby was rescued from the battle by social workers. There have been injuries on both sides. Assistant Chief Constable Lionel Grundy masterminded the operation.
I think with the information that was at hand, I have very little alternative.
Most of the hippies face charges concerning assault, criminal damage, offensive weapons and drugs. Les Skipper, IRN, the Battle of Stonehenge.
Police have been involved in an operation to stop people holding an illegal festival at Stonehenge. More than 100 arrests were made. More than 200 people have been arrested after violence in Wiltshire between police and a convoy of hippies. The convoy was on its way to a pop music festival at Stonehenge. The National Trust had obtained a High Court injunction banning the festival. 140 vehicles a few miles from Stonehenge and failed to persuade those aboard to leave the area. Those arrested are expected to be charged with public order offences.
Officers confronted the convoy within 7 miles of Stonehenge. A police helicopter pinpointed the progress of the 400 hippies. The police blocked the road with council vehicles and tipped 15 tons of gravel. When the 140 vehicles came to a halt, fighting broke out. Vehicle windows were smashed and 60 arrests were made. 200 of the convoy members, including small children and babies, retreated into a field. Police were pelted with lumps of wood, petrol bombs and stones. They sheltered behind riot shields as missiles were hurled at them. After a 4-hour lull, to give time for reinforcements to be brought in, the police appealed to the convoy to leave peacefully. It was rejected. So the police moved in. Some of the hippies, mothers with children, left quietly. Others resisted. As lines of hippies came out under arrest, the police alleged vehicles had been driven deliberately at them. Hippies complained they had been treated brutally. A dozen of the injured were taken to hospital. About 200 hippies, among them mothers with their children, were ferried away in a fleet of police vehicles. The aftermath of the 6-hour confrontation, broken down vehicles and fires burning. The police gathered up an assortment of weapons left behind.
There have been violent scenes at Stonehenge, where Wiltshire police have been involved in an operation to stop people holding an illegal pop festival. More than 200 were arrested.
Police have now arrested more than 500 people trying to hold an illegal pop festival near Stonehenge. Most of the members of the so-called peace convoy were held during violent clashes with riot police 10 miles from Stonehenge. They're being held at police stations throughout the south of England and face charges of assault, possession of drugs and offensive weapons. 24 people, 9 of them policemen, have been treated for injuries. A special court has been sitting all day to start dealing with 520 people arrested in clashes with police yesterday near Stonehenge. There were 10 more arrests today. Police have defended their tactics yesterday. They said missiles had been thrown and police vehicles rammed before they moved in on a hippie convoy. The police action shown on ITN last night came late in the day. Some officers had to jump clear as coaches were driven at speed round a field. When they were halted, police climbed inside to make arrests. The occupants were forced to the ground. 24 people were taken to hospital and those arrested lined up in the road before being marched off. Some of them, too, showed the signs of a fierce battle.
Outside Salisbury Police Station, set up this morning as a special court to deal with those arrested on their way to the illegal pop festival at Stonehenge. Hippies waited for some of those now facing charges. This afternoon near Stonehenge, as the police continue to clear the area, Both locals and hippies spoke of yesterday's events.
I think I can speak on behalf of all the residents of Amesbury and Durrington that I think they're very relieved, of all the trouble that's carried on through what's going on here.
Do you think the police took the right action?
Well, I think they were provoked into doing what they had to do last night without a shadow of a doubt.
The amount of police was just ridiculous for us, and they set off a trap, that's all it was. Just one big trap to get us in this field.
As the clearance continues, back at Salisbury, the courts are expected to be busy for a few days yet, dealing with the remaining charges. Kim Sabido, ITN, Stonehenge.
Hippies in a peace convoy tried to break through police roadblocks and trouble followed. The police surrounded the vans as they slowed down and smashed their windows to stop them. A court order had banned the pop festival this year because the huge number of people attending has damaged the ancient monument.
Police defend their action at Stonehenge. To the news now. Police have been defending their actions against the Stonehenge hippie convoy. They arrested 520 people, but said they had been pelted with missiles and had their vehicles rammed before they moved in. A special court in Salisbury has been hearing cases against some of those arrested.
The police action shown on ITN last night came late in the day. Some officers had to jump clear as coaches were driven at speed through a field. When they were halted, police forced their way inside to make arrests, forcing the occupants to the ground. In all, 24 people were taken to hospital, while all those arrested were lined up away from the field in a nearby road before being marched off.
Some big trap to get us in this field.
As the clearance continues back at Salisbury, the courts are expected to be busy for a few days yet, dealing with the remaining charges. Kim Sabido, ITN, Stonehenge.
Miles of Stonehenge.
After the violent scenes at Stonehenge over the weekend, hundreds of people have appeared in court. More than 500 were arrested after clashes with police who were determined to stop an illegal pop festival being held on the site. Coaches were used to ferry those arrested to court. Most were charged with public order offences and released on bail. But magistrates made one stipulation: they had to stay at least 25 miles away from Stonehenge. The members of the so-called peace convoy have, though, found one ally.
About 200 of the convoy moved onto the Earl of Cardigan's land just outside Marlborough yesterday. Normally, this is a quiet picnic site. The police offer to...
Wiltshire police now say they've made more than 200 arrests among people heading towards Stonehenge in a convoy of vehicles to hold an illegal pop festival. A big police operation was mounted throughout the day to prevent people gathering for the festival, which has been banned by a High Court injunction. Ian Whiteley reports.
There were violent scenes as the police moved in to clear the convoy of about 140 vehicles which had parked in a field a few miles away from Stonehenge after earlier blocking the main A303 road. Wiltshire police said the decision to arrest people followed an unsuccessful attempt by the county's Assistant Chief Constable, Lionel Grundy, to persuade the group to abandon its plan to hold a festival and leave the area. Some refused and were warned that they would be arrested. During the confrontation, windows of vehicles in the convoy were smashed and 2 were set on fire. So many people were arrested that Wiltshire police cells were full tonight, and some people had to be taken to police stations in Hampshire. A spokesman said they'd be charged with public order offences. At Stonehenge itself, the police are maintaining a strong presence tonight in case of further trouble. A number of people were arrested earlier after climbing over the perimeter fence. The National Trust, which owns the site, has closed it to the public and brought in its own security guards after obtaining a High Court injunction banning a pop festival there. Festivals have been held at Stonehenge for several years without National Trust permission during the weeks leading up to the summer solstice on June the 21st. Last year there were more than 200 arrests, most of them for drug offences. Today, 500 extra police were drafted in from 6 counties.
The Forestry Commission is taking legal action to force hundreds of hippies off its land at Savernake Forest in Wiltshire. The hippies were given refuge in the woods by Lord Cardigan after they clashed with police at a banned pop festival at Stonehenge in the weekend. The hippies leader says they've no intention of moving on.
The annual conference of Britain's police chiefs has heard that the country is facing a breakdown in law and order because of the permissive society. The warnings come from the Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire, Charles McLaughlin. He says football hooliganism is just part of a much wider problem.
Unfortunately, many of our young people have grown up in a society which is almost afraid to impose discipline or stop people doing what they think they should be allowed to do. And we as a society have failed to...
The headlines again. There have been violent scenes near Stonehenge where Wiltshire police have been involved in an operation to stop people holding an illegal pop festival. More than 200 were arrested. Tornado.
Charges arising out of efforts to attend an illegal pop festival at Stonehenge. The charges included obstruction, threatening behaviour and possession of drugs. Here's Kathy Hunt.
Those arrested had been trying to attend an illegal pop festival at Stonehenge. A festival has been held there for the past 11 years, but this time local farmers and the National Trust won a High Court injunction to stop it. Yesterday there were violent confrontations between police and a convoy on its way to the monument. The special courts at Salisbury Police Station are expected to be sitting until Wednesday. So far, defendants have been bailed to reappear either next month or in August on condition that they don't go within 25 miles of Stonehenge. But they are being allowed to return to their vehicles beside the A303 at Chalderton, the scene of yesterday's pitched battle.
An uneasy calm has now settled around Stonehenge after pitched battles between police and hippies near the historic site. 300 people are under arrest, but hundreds of officers in riot gear are still standing by after beating back convoys of travellers determined to break through police lines to hold a festival. From Wiltshire, Les Skipper reports.
The hippies camped in a field after failing to break through a police barricade. 500 officers wielding truncheons moved in to carry out the arrests. They smashed up buses and vans and dragged people to a line of waiting police vehicles. The hippies resisted by driving their vans at police and then setting them on fire. 15 ambulances ferried the injured, police and hippies, to hospital. Those under arrest face charges concerning assault, criminal damage, offensive weapons and drugs. Les Skipper, IRN, Wiltshire.
The 12 o'clock news, this is Paul Woodley. Magistrates in Wiltshire are holding emergency sittings to deal with over 500 hippies detained after violent clashes near Stonehenge. The most serious charges are assault and possessing offensive weapons. The mass arrests were carried out by 500 police equipped with riot gear. Les Skipper reports.
The operation is aimed at stopping an annual illegal summer solstice pop festival. Police smashed the windows of buses and vans to carry out the arrests and in return faced a barrage of abuse. There were injuries, but not serious. Local Conservative MP Robert Key visited the battlefield.
The police are utterly right. This has been going on for some 10 years now, and enough is enough. The line has to be drawn.
Today, 300 police are on duty in case more dropouts try to get near Stonehenge. 20 ambulances are on standby. Les Skipper, IRN, Wiltshire.
Religious services at Hunt. At just after 12 o'clock, this is Lindsay Leonard reporting.
7 years, but this time local farmers and the National Trust won a High Court injunction to stop it going ahead. The police say those arrested have been charged with public order offensive. Tim Mabey reports from Stonehenge.
There were still people arriving for the pop festival during the night, saying they were determined to get through to Stonehenge, which they said was an important religious site. Those who'd been here yesterday told of being thrown off their traditional campsites near the stones and having seen a pitched battle between police and the so-called peace convoy that tried to break through a police roadblock. At the scene of that confrontation, on the A303 7 miles east of Stonehenge, over 100 vehicles are parked in a field under police guard. They range from large coaches to caravans and vans. I watched some of them being towed in during the night, too battered to be driven, a sign of the violence of what happened when eyewitnesses say vehicles driven directly at policemen had their windscreens smashed.
10 people have been...
There were injuries, but not serious. Local Conservative MP Robert Key visited the battlefield.
The police are utterly right. This has been going on for some 10 years now, and enough is enough. The line has to be drawn.
Today, 300 police are on duty in case more dropouts try to get near Stonehenge. 20 ambulances are on standby. Les Skipper, IRN, Wiltshire.
It's 1 o'clock. Liz Allen at the news desk. Special courts sitting at Salisbury Police Station have begun dealing with the 520 people arrested yesterday while attempting to stage an illegal festival at Stonehenge. Most have been charged with assault and obstruction. Those who've appeared so far have been released on bail, but they're not allowed to go within 25 miles of Stonehenge. There's still a heavy police presence at the monument, where a pop festival had been held for the past 11 years, but this year it was banned by the High Court. Police in Strathclyde...
People have started to appear in a special court in Salisbury in connection with an attempt to hold an illegal pop festival at Stonehenge yesterday. Wiltshire police say 520 people were arrested and charged with various offences, mostly breaches of public order. They're being held at police stations in 4 counties. Tim Mabey has been at Stonehenge and was in court this morning.
Around Stonehenge itself, things have returned to calm, though police are moving those who they think look like festival goers out of the nearby town of Amesbury and the area under the power of a High Court injunction banning the festival. There are young people hitching lifts or walking down the roads all around. A special court to formally charge those arrested yesterday began sitting in Salisbury Police Station last night and continued this morning. Nearly 50 cases have been heard, mostly involving obstruction of the police, but at least one involving assault on the police and the possession of drugs. Most of the defendants were in their 20s or younger and were given bail, conditional on their staying more than 25 miles away from Stonehenge until their cases are heard, which will be mostly at the end of July. They're being given enough time to find their possessions before they leave. One case involving a German woman will be heard tomorrow. She was in tears in court, like an Australian woman who was also charged. Others seemed resigned as they appeared. Some were barefoot, and one young man wore only shorts, boots, and a hat.
More than 500 hippies detained after violent clashes near Stonehenge. The most serious charges are assault and possessing offensive weapons. The mass arrests were carried out by 500 police equipped with riot gear. Les Skipper reports.
The operation is aimed at stopping an annual illegal summer solstice pop festival. Police smashed the windows of buses and vans to carry out the arrests and in return faced a barrage of abuse. There were injuries, but not serious. Local Conservative MP Robert King... The battlefield.
The police are utterly right. This has been going on for some 10 years now, and enough is enough. The line has to be drawn.
Today, 300 police are on duty in case more dropouts try to get near Stonehenge. 20 ambulances are on standby. Les Skipper, IRN, Wiltshire.
Around Stonehenge. But perhaps not, for on both occasions, violence exploded among young people who were, ostensibly at least, supposed to be setting out to enjoy themselves. But if the Battle of Stonehenge might be thought of as midsummer madness that turned into midsummer mayhem, what happened in Brussels on Wednesday was much, much worse.
2 Liverpool football fans, 100 people arrested for trying to hold a pop festival at Stonehenge. There's been a summer pop festival at Stonehenge for the past 11 years, but this year the National Trust won a High Court injunction banning the event. Police arrested 520 people yesterday in a series of violent confrontations, and so far 20 cases have been heard. Tim Mabey was in court.
Around Stonehenge itself, things have returned to calm, though police are moving those who they think look like festival goers out of the nearby town of Amesbury and the area under the power of...
As European football chiefs meet this, during which police were accused of being heavy-handed in stopping a convoy from reaching the ancient site. The hippies were trying to defy a court ban on setting up a festival at Stonehenge. Here's Sue Brooks.
Police moved in to stop the hippies as their convoy of buses got within 7 miles of Stonehenge. Local landowner Earl Cardigan says he thinks unnecessary force was used.
One officer picked up a huge, looks like a sledgehammer, and with 6 extraordinary blows, reduced the entire dashboard, steering column, handbrake, gearbox, and anything else to powder.
But local MP Robert Key says he's right behind the police action.
The police are utterly right. This has been going on for some 10 years now, and enough is enough. The line has to be drawn.
Meanwhile, magistrates in Wiltshire have been sitting all day, dealing with more than 500 hippies arrested after yesterday's battle with police.
The Archbishop of Canterbury is warning Britain's youth that the abuse of drugs will lead them straight to hell. Dr. Robert...
The Forestry Commission is taking legal action to force hundreds of hippies off its land at Stonehenge Forest in Wiltshire. The hippies were given refuge in the woods by Lord Cardigan after they clashed with police at a banned pop festival at Stonehenge in the weekend. The hippies leader says there's no intention of moving on.
The annual conference of Britain's police chiefs has heard that the country is facing a breakdown in law and order because of the permissive society. The warnings come from the Chief Constable of Nottinghamshire, Charles McLaughlin. He says football hooliganism is just part of a much wider problem.
Unfortunately, many of our young people have grown up in a society which is almost afraid to impose discipline or stop people doing what they think they should be allowed to do. And we as a society have failed to combat so many of the evils that we can see around us.
That this was not the case. After the Brussels disaster, the problem of football hooliganism needed urgent attention, he said. But football thugs were not an isolated breed. They were only part of a society which seemed afraid to impose discipline. Mr. McLaughlin called on the public to help achieve decent standards and impose respectable behaviour on young people at an early stage, instead of allowing them to live in a permissive society until they were 17 or 18 and then send them to jail.
It's just part of a much wider problem.
Unfortunately, many of our young people have grown up in a society which is almost afraid to impose discipline or stop people doing what they think they should be allowed to do. And we as a society have failed to combat so many of the evils that we can see around us, of which football hooliganism is only a part.
They appear as a weird and rather threatening collection of dropouts. They despise all that modern, respectable folk hold to be of value and talk of magic and mysticism. They describe themselves as a tribal community, a New Age social gathering. But to an outsider visiting their temporary camp in Savernake Forest, the first impression is one of squalor, battered trucks and old buses, mud underfoot, and dozens of small children and mongrel dogs running around everywhere. The adults sit around talking, making music in strange 60s clothes. Travelling people with Stonehenge their mecca. And for the last 12 years, they've gathered there at midsummer. Maggie has been to every festival.
We go into the stones and we sing and we meditate and we christen our babies that have been born the year before. We marry each other. We scatter the ashes of anyone who's died in previous years. And we share the energy of the Sun Temple, which is what we come to. It's the energy that is there and has been there for thousands of years that we come to be with, that energy, to regenerate ourselves for the next year. It's our temple, it's our church, as Westminster Abbey is a Christian church. And what is actually happening is that we are being kept away by razor wire and boards, all these awful things they put round there, from our place of worship.
They tend to overlook the quite valid point that when the tribe gathers, it inevitably, though perhaps inadvertently, damages the environment. Certainly the neat and carefully tended picnic site at Savernake Forest is going to require a lot of clearing up when the convoy eventually moves on. Sid Rawle, a veteran member of the group, sees the conflict between the travelling tribe and the authorities in terms of a conflict between the haves and the have-nots. The haves, he says, want to keep the have-nots in cities and keep the countryside for their own enjoyment. But he says the unemployed have every right to the countryside themselves, and travelling is becoming a growing way of life.
The country should welcome this. I know it's fearful of welcoming this, but it nevertheless should welcome this. There is plenty of provision under law in order to give us sites so that we can travel around, but nevertheless be on proper sites. There is all the facilities and things that we need are already on statute. There's no problem in providing us with what we need.
And so society, more widely, is going to say, why do you have a right to any of these things if you don't, as they would say, contribute to society?
We contribute very much to society. Nobody that lives in a society cannot contribute to that society. I think that is a very, very wrong way. All citizens must contribute to society.
So people
but
think in
citizens
terms of
contribute
income
different
tax
things. Well, I know that the modern god is called cash. It has completely wiped the floor with the Christian church. This is why a new spirituality has to come up, because cash has wiped the floor with the Christian church. The great god cash that is being worshipped, though, is increasingly, even by the World Banks and the IMF, being declared a god that is about to tumble from its mighty pillar, and when it does, it will be an almighty crash, and its worshippers will be left stunned and confused. We are trying the experiment to find ways in which civilization can grow and prosper when the god cash has disappeared.
So it's a political movement, but not one to be found on the left-right spectrum. Political ideas are seen in terms of materialism or spirituality. But however much a liberally minded outsider might sympathize with the ideals of the community, their drug-taking can't be condoned. They admit to it, but point out that hard drugs are discouraged and that the most dangerous drug they take is a certain well-known brand of canned beer, far more lethal, they say, than marijuana or the various stimulants freely available. The legal status of the various drugs, I was told, was irrelevant. If you trade in marijuana, you're a pusher, but if you push alcohol, you're called an off-license.
What is there out there for anybody, really? I mean, there's no work for people to do. There's nothing, you know. We might as well be out here in the country. We have got people with us of all sorts of talents, you know, and we can actually be self-supporting if we are left alone to do it, you know.
Ted Harrison among the Alternative Society.
Behind the walls of this very ordinary house in Slough, plans are being prepared to reshape society in a way which will give absolute freedom to everyone to do as he likes. An attractive proposition, but will it ever get off the ground? Sid Rawle, known as Psychedelic Sid, you might call him a hippie high priest.
We found a deserted village in a valley up in just outside of Carnarvon, and moved up there. And this was down by the sea, and it was miles away, no road in there or anything, and 20 of us moved in. Tibet has got nothing on it, you know. It was really too much.
Judging by the broad grin, that was a nice trip down memory lane for you, Sid.
Yes, but it's a straight trip back the lane.
How long were you in Wales?
Up until 2 years ago, and that community is flourishing very successfully.
It's still going?
Oh, yes, it's still going. There's over 150 people in it.
In many ways, you're still regarded as king of the hippies, even in 1985.
Oh, well, you see, I think that the media sees everything in disjointed loops. There's, you know, what's going on today is the only thing that's happening, and I don't think society's like that at all. I think that if things have staying power, and certainly the alternative society that started in the 60s has staying power, and I would say today that it's stronger than it ever was then, because then it was hyped and it was created, although there was a very, very genuine part to it. The genuine part has survived. The genuine part has brought up children. The genuine part is now having grandchildren.
How do you get by? Where does the money come from?
Oh, here and there, and on the dole with 4 million others.
So how do you answer your critics who say that, in fact, it's sort of true society is actually funding your little
humorous game of the alternatives.
Yes, well, I am with Desmond Morris, man is an animal, all animals have to have territory. And I'm afraid that our lot have got it so mixed up that the vast majority of people, especially in this society, have no real territory that's their own. Now, we should have territory for hunting and gathering. That's what we should have. A very modern form of hunting and gathering may be, and I'm not particularly against industry and one thing and another, but in reality, we don't have that territory. And therefore, basically, this whole dole business is to throw people on the scrap heap from which they can't get off. Now, what I say is if you're on that scrap heap that you can't get off, make the most of it. Don't worry about getting off it if you can't. Turn it to your advantage, and make that way real and make that way exciting.
Sid Roll, thank you. And
after violent clashes between police and a 2-mile convoy of hippies trying to reach an illegal pop festival. The Peace Convoy group rammed police roadblocks despite a court ban imposed after damage to the site last year.
In Wiltshire, there were 60 arrests as hundreds of hippies in a so-called peace convoy clashed with police blocking their way to an illegal pop festival at Stonehenge. The monument's owners had obtained a High Court order banning the festival, which has been held annually for 11 years.
500 police officers confronted the convoy within 7 miles of Stonehenge. A police helicopter pinpointed the progress of the 400 hippies. The police blocked the road with council vehicles and tipped 15 tons of gravel. When the 140 vehicles came to a halt, fighting broke out. Vehicle windows were smashed and 60 arrests were made. 200 of the convoy members, including small children and babies, retreated into a field. Police were pelted with lumps of wood, petrol bombs and stones. The violence continued for more than an hour. The police say their tactics are to contain the hippies in the field until they've called up reinforcements. But they say they intend to end the confrontation before darkness.
300 arrested in Stonehenge battle. More than 300 people have been arrested during violent battles between police and a hippie convoy near Stonehenge in Wiltshire. The convoy crashed through roadblocks this afternoon on its way to an illegal pop festival. Police in riot gear surrounded the hippies in a field before moving in. We have just received these pictures.
The violence that broke out tonight in a field in Wiltshire is difficult to put into context. 400 people in a convoy of 160 coaches, caravans and trucks had tried to get to Stonehenge in clear defiance of the law. The police had blocked all roads. Holidaymakers were inconvenienced by finding themselves in 10-mile traffic jams. Previously, the hippies had cut down fencing. They'd thrown missiles and unlit petrol bombs at the police, which had spilled dangerously over the road.
You have a no escape. Leave your vehicles and walk towards the police officers.
Stop there! Stop there! Out! All right! Stop! We have babies in here, very small babies! Madam, wait! Madam! All right, let the ladies come out. Can I bring the ladies in? Right, good. We've got 3 babies in here. Bring the ladies into the forward, please.
Come on! When the police evicted them roughly from the field they'd occupied, there were many accusations of brutality.
Get out! Open the door then! Come out then! Come out, sort out!
This is a quiet picnic site. The police offered to lend men to clear the group away, but the Earl refused. He had been at the scene of Saturday's fighting near Stonehenge and says he was horrified by what he saw.
There was broken glass everywhere, there were screaming women, there were pregnant screaming women, there were babies in arms covered in broken glass. and I just hadn't seen that sort of thing before.
But as word of the new site gets out, and with more people already flooding in, it is likely to become unmanageable soon. So it's expected that within 3 or 4 days the police will move in again and the convoy be forced to move on.
Magistrates in Salisbury sat until late this evening to hear almost 200 cases against people arrested during the weekend clashes between police and hippies from a peace convoy which was attempting to camp at Stonehenge. Most were granted bail. The convoy has found a temporary home on land belonging to the Earl of Cardigan, who saw some of the clashes.
Old truism that violence breeds violence. It is one which was certainly detected in the stories which emerged from another, less notorious riot last weekend.
The Battle of Stonehenge.
Bloody Battle of Stonehenge. Riot police clash with Peace March hippies.
The story of the attempt to hold a banned pop festival was dismissively treated by the Sunday papers. The news of the world was typical.
Riot police fought hundreds of armed hippies in an astonishing battle near Stonehenge yesterday. 300 long-haired thugs and women were arrested in the mayhem that followed.
Only Nick Davies in The Observer provided a real alternative account of what happened.
I witnessed women and children being hit with truncheons, glass from broken vehicle windows showering down on those inside, and a mother dragged out of a shattered window with her child and thrown weeping to the ground.
We talked to Nick Davies, and he told us he was, in fact, the only Fleet Street reporter in the field at the time of the confrontation with the peace convoy. And where were the other hacks? According to the Mail on Sunday,
most journalists had been moved away, but one television reporter who was in the field said,
"It was brutal."
the coverage raised more questions than it answered. The Daily Telegraph at least went to the trouble of establishing some of the logistical background to the police presence at Stonehenge. Their Scotland Yard correspondent, Ian Henry, made the point that much has been learned by the police in the past couple of years.
The police operation mounted by Wiltshire Police to enforce the ban on the Stonehenge Festival had been meticulously planned for several months.
Several months?
Lessons in rapid deployment learned from the miners' strike, Greenham Common, and other pop festivals were implemented.
By Tuesday, however, the hippies, and how touching that the word persists from the 60s, had found an unexpected new champion.
Earl's Haven for 150 hippies after battle.
The Earl of Cardigan, Old Etonian and secretary to Marlborough Conservatives, was providing a haven for 150 hippies caught up in Saturday's battle with police trying to stop them reaching Stonehenge.
And as if to preempt astonishment at his action, the Earl stated his credentials, or lack of them.
I am not a long-haired lefty. I have short back and sides, went to public school, speak with a funny accent, and am a creature of the establishment.
In spite of these defects, Lord Cardigan was apparently moved and appalled by what he saw of the clashes between hippies and police.
It was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Seeing in a Hampshire field, not Northern Ireland or Lebanon, on that summer's afternoon, pregnant women screaming hysterically and babies lying in broken glass for whatever reason really cut me up as a father of a 6-month-old baby.
While most of Fleet Street sat on the sidelines, how did the Earl get such a vivid account? The Daily Mail supplied the answer.
Lord Cardigan rode his high-powered black, red and silver motorcycle through the police blockade on Saturday and saw the violence at first hand.
The Mail took unkindly to this blue-blooded investigator. Stretching the wits and education of their sub-editors beyond their limits, they came up with an overstrained reference to
the man whose ancestor led the ill-fated Charge of the Light Brigade.
Hippies to right of him, hippies to left of him, hippies in front of him, as Cardigan volleyed and blundered.
With apologies to Tennyson and his poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade.
The Daily Mail, like most of Fleet Street, trailed slowly behind the amateur reporter, the Earl of Cardigan, and could ill afford to crow.
We must resist the siren voice of those elements of society who are constantly saying we need less discipline and less control, and often encourage denigration of the police and authority generally.
No use going and saying, well, you can do what you like, you can, we live in this free society, we can all be liberal, everybody has rights to do this, rights to do that. And then suddenly at the end say, oh no, you've got to stop doing that and we'll birch you or we'll put you in jail. It's a much longer and much more important process than that.
Given what we have seen in recent times, and it's been building up over several years, that we must take some action to deal with these hooligans if we can catch them, charge them and bring them before the courts.
So the message from this conference is clear. Football hooligans should not be looked upon as an isolated breed. The police chiefs insist they're the result of a loss of respect for authority, and they say it's up to society to do something about it.
But it was on his Frost programme in London that he made the headlines when he interviewed Jerry Rubin, a self-styled yippie.
Hello, good evening, and welcome. Here
to be society without money.
You imagine that? Society in which everything's free. Society in which everything's shared.
Rubbish.
Rubbish.
You negotiated more than anyone else who's ever been on this program to get double the usual fee. Rubbish.
Damn, of course, yeah! A steal! Hey! David, we're going to use that to buy bombs! To blow up your society! We're going to use it to smoke dope.
Do you smoke dope?
No.
Well, let's try it. We'll start.
What sort of dope are you in favor of? All dope?
We're in favor of drugs that expand the consciousness and even make you look a little better.
We go home every night getting wiped out on scotch. We're with our brothers and sisters getting high on weed.
The new society, let's go.
Come on, everybody, come on.
Hi, very nice.
Now, Robert, carry on.
All right, let's go. Let's get some real television going here, man.
Right, let's talk.
Gay Liberation Front.
Robert.
Every Robin Hood thinks he's Jesus Christ.
I think I feel more like being over here.
Okay, let's go.
Well, that's how pathetic.
Oh,
a gay...
Shut up, Ross, you were dead years ago. You're
Look at Oh, look.
Will you get rid of these people?
Isn't this marvelous? Isn't this marvelous?
I hate to think what you'll be like 10 years.
Listen, by laughing childishly when you manage to say a 4-letter word on television, big deal.
Okay, man, how many times have you said a 4-letter word on television?
Never, and I hope I never will, because it's so pathetic and so childish and so pointless, and we'll be right back.
Stonehenge has provided an inspiration to all sorts of men who have no other common bond. The artist, the mathematician, the scientist, the poet, the huckster, the religious. All of them have come here to find a faith or a theory about this enigmatic stone circle, to fill what has been described as the gap between what man is certain of and what... For a month before the day dawns, thousands of people travel to this megalithic Mecca. A small city up to 50,000 strong springs up. They're an extraordinary collection. A few punks, a sprinkling of Hell's Angels, some teepee people, and masses of men and women seemingly stuck in a 60s time warp, now with their children in tow. Sid Rawls describes himself as a tribal elder.
The stones are the spiritual, political center of this nation. And here I'll go over the top and say, therefore, of the world.
Gift to the photographer. There's civil engineer John Powell.
Come on!
Right.
Don't go away now. Now you've started.
Right.
Right. Let's what I want from you.
Right.
Right. Don't make it too long, will you? No, this
Right,
is okay.
Don't miss the film. Okay, right.
Okay, here we go. No, come here. What's your reaction to what's going on here today?
I think it's disgraceful and it's disgusting, and I'm more angry with the people who are standing by and letting it happen.
Joining hands we dance, joining souls rejoice. Under the full moonlight we dance, with dance we dance, joining hands we dance, joining souls rejoice. The Americans are supposed to make good things. It's long lasting. Cruise missiles galore. Oh, I don't think it even dented it. Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima. We're going to be Muslim. And it will take some real strength. We are the women of freedom. And it's for freedom we're fighting. We are the women of freedom. And it's for freedom we're fighting. Your soul's price has been paid. $1 a fortnight is a bloody huge sum of money. And it's enough to feed the whole of the world's population and clothe them and house them and educate them for a whole year.
No, my dear, this is no way to do it, my love.
She can move her own.
Get
up!
No.
Get up!
No, we've seized the car, my dear.
You have not.
My name is Davis, and I'm telling you on behalf of the High Court.
Who's pulling me?
On behalf of the High Court, my love, we have seized it, my dear.
You're not taking this car!
No, fair enough. That's what you say at the moment.
Yes?
Now, all right?
Yes, we're not taking this
let's
car.
just talk rationally about it, my dear. I would feel the same way with you. If somebody come up and told me they were taking my car,
my car.
I would feel the same as you. You're a part of the Peace Women's movement here, my love, and
Yes.
you're on the camp.
Yeah.
And our instructions are to remove you and your assets, and this is a part of your
This
assets.
is not, you're not taking my car.
Who does the car belong to? Does it belong to you?
Yeah.
Right, there you are, my love, so there you are. Really and truly.
I'm not there you are, your love.
But it is.
Anything,
No,
you're
but this
not
is the way it...
taking my car.
No, right, this is your right to say that. So what are you going to do, sit in it?
Yeah.
Right you are then. So we'll have to remove you, my dear. Sorry.
Why can't you move her own car?
Because we have seized it on behalf of the High Court.
For what reason?
To defray the costs of the removing of the Peace Women from
Jesus,
Greenham
there's
Common.
no way it's going to cost anything. We just move.
If you've got a note, have you got a notice?
I am here. Oh yes, we have a High Court.
I am seeing it.
No, fair enough. Then the officer of the High Court will show it to you, and I will get them to show
I'd like to see it.
But I don't want to.
I don't see why people get
I don't want
around
to get
there.
more in trouble than you are.
Yeah.
You drive away, my love. Then you're taking Crown property.
I'm not taking
As I've told you, this we have seized this on behalf of the court.
This is my car
That's
with
fine.
all my personal belongings.
Yes, well, that's what I would like you to do. Remove your personal belongings, my dear.
It is part of my personal belongings.
And your
this
bag.
car is my personal belongings.
Yes.
Is this what they pay you for? Is this how you pay off your mortgages? But it has to do with you recording a warning to us. I want to give him a warning. And you don't want it. Right. You only want the one side in any case. We know whose side you're on. It's quite evident to us whose side you're on. You're on the side of suicide, genocide, and homicide. We're on the side that wants to save this planet and this world. For life. That's what we want. I know he's laughing because he's insensitive. You've been you've had a spiritual lobotomy done to you if you cannot think. That's what's happened to you, a spiritual lobotomy. If you cannot see, if it becomes an academic exercise for you.
Hang on.
Right.
Don't go away now. Now you've started.
Right.
Right. Let's. What I want from you.
Right.
Okay,
the big to the police.
Be careful with it! Stop that! Stop that! Stop it! Please. Please. Come on. You're not even a policeman. You have no right. You're not. You have no right to do it. You're not a policeman. Please, pregnant woman. Please, no.
She's a pregnant woman!
Stop it. Stop it.
She's pregnant. Be careful with her.
Leave her.
Somebody look.
Are you enjoying yourself being conserving? Are you enjoying yourself? I ask you, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Are you on the other side from us? Which side are you on? I ask you, which side are you on? Which side are you on? And you can't forbid my tears to flow, and you can't shut my mouth when I sing. I'm in everything. I'm in What was you being arrested for? Being a woman, eh, Judy? Oh, my God. Is this what they pay you for? Is this how you